making a marketable game is the core challenge that all of us have nowadays, right? Because the reality is that making a good game is far more subjective and also doesn't matter in terms of marketability.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 548 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Matt, I'm the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artiste.
And today is November 21st, 2020 vibes. Today, we're going to talk about marketing.
Let's do it.
Yeah, also I just kind of like defaulted right back to the old intro.
You did.
I can't break it. It's so hard. 500 episodes of the same intro. It's very difficult.
That's going to be a deep wrinkle in your brain.
Yeah. I think it's more of a canyon. It's just like, I think, you know, that middle part of your brain where it's like split?
That's the cleave.
That's where I put that. It's really deep in there. All right. So we're going to talk about marketing. We are going to be recording potentially 2 episodes about marketing. So we have to continue this conversation, in the next episode, if it goes on, and I think it probably will, because we have a lot to say, because we've been up to some shenanigans. So first, let's talk about, like, before we get into the conversation about it, I want to
We're talking about marketing video games.
marketing indie games,
Yeah.
more specifically. I want to make sure we're on the same page about what marketing is, because I think a lot of people getting into games are worried about marketing. They're always panicking about it. They don't want to do it. They hate the idea of like selling stuff and like being a salesman or whatever. So in marketing classes, they talk about the 4 P's of marketing, which is the product, the price, the promotion, and the placement. So these are like the 4 components of it. And people tend to really think about those last 3 as marketing, which is like, how much am I charging? Where am I selling it? How am I advertising it?
Right. I guess to be clear, that probably was like a big concern a while ago. You know what I mean? When things were a little more crazy. But the reality now is like, you're selling the game on one of like 3 or 4 giant platforms. Your monetization model is largely pre-decided for you, you know, in terms of like, depending on the genre you're building.
Yeah.
So most of that is like just like a vague concern. You know, pricing is maybe the one that you could be like concerned about, but that's also kind of a vibes thing. So that really does leave a lot of that like previous knowledge that was really important about like how to think about placement and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like you're selling a game on Steam, price is $5 to $20.
Yep.
You know, you don't have a huge range of options there. It's not like you're going to charge $400.
Well, I think in this case, placement is also more specific, right? Because it's like, yeah, is it on Steam? Obviously,
Yes.
yeah, it better be on Steam, right? But it's also, where does it appear on Steam? And
And that's where like your tagging and
you have
stuff
influence
like that.
over that. So yeah, so that's and those are all still huge elements, but like the details of what does each one mean in the context of trying to sell a video game?
Yes.
That varies with time, and and you need to figure out as the person making the game, like what are those elements, and what do you have control over? What do you not have control over? What do you need to learn how to do, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, again, for the most part, then what's happened is with the consolidation of power on all these platforms is that a lot of those things have been reduced to, like Seth said, a couple choices realistically for you, you know, for selling games on Steam, and also a lot of automated systems. So the tagging wizard of Steam. It's not like you should spend some time, you know, figuring out what the tags your game should be, obviously. But that's also, again, more related to the product, which is now the final piece. And the final question of why is product included in
It's
marketing?
the first P, right?
Yeah.
The first P of marketing. Because if you really think about it, like marketing is basically just making something for an audience. Making a product and getting it into the hands of the people it's meant for, right?
Yeah, it's not separate. It's not, you've got a product, now market it, right?
Yeah,
The product is under the umbrella of the whole process of marketing.
Yeah. And so let's dig into then, like, why do you need to be thinking about marketing then as an indie developer? Like, can't you just make something good and just kind of get it out there? Because many people would kind of approach this from the thought process of, if I just make a really, really good game, it's not my job to like go broadcast to the world about it, because there are people who do that. There's streamers, there's YouTubers, there's journalists, there's reviewers and critics and whatever. They talk about games all the time.
Well, and there's the platforms, right? It's like, it's Steam's job to sell good games to people. So like, I just put my game on
30%. So
Yeah.
they should be selling it
Yeah.
for you, you know?
High
Yeah, which
incentive,
is
yep.
fair, but also like they can't sell every game because there's too many, right? Yeah. So why do you need to be thinking about the marketing side of things when when it seems like maybe at first glance it's everybody else's job? It's your job to make the game. It's all these external parties' job to promote it, right? That's the P. That's that one P of marketing.
Well, even when it's not external, even when it's internal, even if you're the one doing, like, you're posting things on Twitter, or you're, whatever, right? Like, if you're treating that as separate from the making of the game, then it's the idea of, like, you made it, now it's time to go sell it. It's time to go tell people about it, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're doing it, whether somebody else is doing it, right? It's
Yeah, it has to be integrated. Is basically the point, right? And I think it kind of comes out like there's a lot of old school. There's some old school something about like the selling a pen analogy of like that whole. It's like a business test.
Sell
sometimes,
this
like,
pin to me.
Sell this pen to me. That's like the vibe. It feels like that a lot of indies also approach marketing with, right? Which is like, I already have this game that no one asked for. Nobody even told me they want, and now it's my job or someone else's job to like sell it to them, to sell it to people.
or it's the
Yes.
Steve Jobs thing where people are always like, people love to talk about how Steve Jobs like invented stuff that nobody even knew they wanted, and like that's how,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like I think that's like the vibe associated with some of this marketing stuff, when in reality what it should be and what it is making a marketable product, is like making a marketable game is the core challenge that all of us have nowadays, right? Because the reality is that making a good game is far more subjective, and also doesn't matter in terms of marketability, unfortunately. And you see indie devs complaining about this all the time, which is like, but this game sucks. I don't understand why it did better.
We were joking all the way back when No Man's Sky came out about how like it launched at what, maybe 35% positive or something.
Not
Like
good.
it just was not good, right? Not only did it not meet the hype that they had built for it, it just wasn't good, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and like you're saying about the pen, like the idea with that is just take a thing, a pen, a game, a phone, whatever, and you can just make people want it by the way that you talk about it. Just you can just kind of schmooze and
Again, it's
calm
after
your
the
way
fact.
in, you
Yeah,
know.
the pen art exists. Now you got to figure out how to
Yeah.
wrap it in a way that people will buy it.
And
right?
and
Which
and
is
that
like,
kind of
that's one part, but the other problem too is that you first have to be able to talk to the person, right? And so it's always
you have to
presented
be
as
able
like,
to reach.
sell me this pen. It's like you're already right there with the guy who wants you to convince him to buy the pen, right?
Yeah.
When you're trying to sell a video game, you can't even talk to anybody about it. They're too busy listening to other people trying to sell them pens. How do you can't even get in the door?
Yeah, and this is not like Listerine, right? Where like Listerine was basically like, oh, we have this like antibacterial shit that we thought was like a cleaning product, but it turns out you could like swoosh it in your mouth and it's all minty or whatever, right? So they're like, can we just like make people self-conscious about their breath? Let's start an ad campaign and like, change the culture around making people feel bad about their breath, and then they'll buy our stuff, right?
Yeah,
which is
it's not
like
Mad Men anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's not the 1950s. Okay.
Yeah, and so for a game, like your game is not solving a problem. It's an experience that like brings, it's an emotional experience that brings something into people's lives, but it's not deodorant. It's not mouthwash, right? And so I think about marketing on the game side more as it's a discovery process, which is like you're trying to find that thing that people didn't know they wanted, right?
Right.
You're not trying to like force people to want something that they don't want. You're trying to find what people want, and that's where that integration comes in. So Sam, if you want to kind of talk about like what do we mean by integrated marketing?
Yeah, so we started this thinking. I mean, we started a bit in the case of like Levelhead, which is again essentially the major problem that most indies have is choosing to make a game that is essentially going to fail because of the first choices you made about it.
And then locking yourself in and just powering through and launching it anyway.
Yeah. And so what I'm talking about that is like not, you might say like, oh, I've done some market research for like as an example. I have done some market research and I see that like yes, crafting survival games, right? Very popular on Steam. So I'm going to make like a very crafty survival game thing, right? And you just sort of like lock in on that and you just start going. And there's no loop in which the actual audience that you're trying to at some point sell this thing to that you're going to spend potentially years of your life working on. There's no loop in which they are involved to assist in, like Seth was saying, the discovery process of turning like very vague, somewhat useless, frankly, high level pieces like crafting game into something that is differentiated enough in the market to sell. So when we talk about integrating marketing then into the design process, it's kind of like there's a reason like indie devs don't like free to play monetization, right? It's because if you have to integrate the monetization itself, like thinking about money kind of all the time, into the basic game design of like into the DNA of the game, of the play experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is really annoying.
If you just tack on an in-app purchase store onto the game at the
Afterward,
end,
it's not going to work.
it's not going to work. Yeah, and that's it's a little bit different in the sense that like it fundamentally changes the design of the game in a way that like changes the gameplay to orchestrate people to spend money in the
I
shop.
don't think it's meaningfully different.
It's not. Yeah, it's.
Like, I think it's different in the sense
like the
that
end
like,
goal. The specifics of the end goal is buy stuff in game versus
Correct.
buy the game, right? Like I don't think. Yeah,
but the integration required is the same.
Yeah,
well, but I would say like because what we've seen with How Many Dudes and the market, like the integrated marketing that we've done is like we get to see what people are excited about, and we get to like lean into that stuff. Nobody's excited to spend money in an in-app purchase store.
I
Right?
think that's true.
So,
there are people who people are excited about skins. They're excited about like I've been excited to buy stuff, and
well, they're excited about the existence of the skins. They're not necessarily excited to spend $20.
No, but I think my point is that that's not like super. That's not really relevant. That's not really on what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the fact that like if you want someone to spend $20 on a skin,
then that
you
has
have
to be part
to
of
think
skin
about it.
has to have value in the game for some
Exactly.
reason.
So
Yeah.
you-
and that has to have been the plan kind of from
the jump.
early in development that was going to be the way that the game was going to make money.
because of the echoes that it has on the design. So similarly, then we're talking about like integrated marketing in your design approach for a game. It means that when you sit down to sketch out like what the game idea is in the first place, that is something that's top of mind for you. That you say,
and you're saying integrated with the development process, not necessarily integrated into the literal game the way like an in-app store is,
yeah,
but
100%.
Also potentially, right? But
Potentially, yeah,
you're specifically talking about the
think
dev
about it.
process.
Yeah. So an example of this and what I mean, just like for some concrete pieces of it, is like nowadays that like short form video has been eating the world, right? So it's like the number one thing that Netflix is scared of. It's the number one thing that all the big game studios are scared of because like people just keep spending more and more time on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, whatever, right? So that is a format in which a lot of people are paying attention to media, right? So one of the questions that should be in your head when you're designing your game as an indie who doesn't have access to a lot of funds to like bootstrap your way into AAA levels of visibility is how does this game work in a short form video context? Can it produce content for people, right? That would be interesting to see where they would naturally share it in a short form video context. And that's what I mean by the integrated approach. So
not only how does the game capture video, it's how does this game exist in an environment where short form video is the dominant way people spend their time.
Yes.
So like there's a lot of people making idle games that are basically built to run in a window alongside TikTok, right?
Yep.
So,
or like whatever you're doing.
Which here's the thing. I hate that, but it's true. You know what I mean? Like I don't like the idea.
I don't do it myself, but
yeah, but like, I don't like the idea of like making a game that people can play by not engaging with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, in some cases, that might be a good idea to do because if that's what people want to do, if that's how people want to play games, and again, this isn't how everybody will play games, right? But like there is an audience who is really interested in this idea of like an idle game, right? A game that's like you can just really, really passively engage with and just kind of have it on the side while you're watching something else.
And I think importantly also that's the same. There's a high overlap of that audience with people who spend a lot of time watching short form video content.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So if I think if we kind of like put it all together, it's the idea of like in any given moment in time that matters most is where we are right now in the near future, right?
Mhm.
How do people find out about games? How do people find out about games in a way that matters to indies, in a way that indies have any control over whatsoever? Right? Today, there's literally one way, which is short form video content. It's the only way. And that does mean that that's going to have to be part of the strategy, right?
Correct.
To make it work. And for it to be part of the strategy, it has to make sense for the game. And so the game has to be designed in a way that makes that make sense, right? And
100%.
yeah, and we in the past have had allergies to this kind of problem of like, well, we want to be able to make the game that we just know is really good that we want to play, right?
Mhm.
And the idea of bending its design towards, oh, well, it needs to be on mobile. Oh, well, it needs to be whatever, right? Made us feel annoyed and frustrated.
And
And
I think
right.
it's a part of it is the problem of where you're starting with on the ideation process, right? Which is that you're already too far downstream in thinking about what your specific game is doing. You're like, if you've already made that many decisions that you're annoyed with the idea that you have to think about short form content or whatever else, then you probably have already fucked it up, right? Because you weren't including that just in your original design for the game. So in terms of like Crashlands 2, for example, a big part of that game was like, okay, we're going to be trying to bridge from mobile to console and PC because the mobile premium side has been kind of wrecked, which means at the time, again, like 2020, we need to kind of step it up. Like we need to do more. The game needs to be bigger. It needs to be like more beautiful, whatever else, because competition on Steam has gotten so intense. We need to do like just more and more and more along all those dimensions. And that means like making kind of a crunchier, bigger, like RPG experience, right? And a big part of the challenge there was then trying to boil that down into something that works for like shorts, right? That works in then this dominant media landscape that the game actually was already in.
And we didn't do that.
We didn't do it. We didn't do it at all, right?
But I think also, and like we also know that as time passes, as people spend more time in this short form content, so I know a lot of people frame this as like people's attention spans are shrinking. I don't know if I would frame it that way. It's
no,
just
people will watch short form content for 4 hours straight. You call that a short attention span,
Yeah, it's more that like people are now much more demanding when it comes to their attention. Like they have standards of how attention grabbing something needs to be for them to commit to it.
Yes.
Right. And so in the case of like Crashlands 2, something that is just kind of like inherent to the type of game that it is, that we would just never able to kind of get out from under, is it's a really slow burn. Like it takes like an hour at least for somebody who's playing the game for the first time to like get a sense of what the different game systems are and kind of like how to engage with stuff. And we kind of like unroll stuff pretty slowly because it's just this giant game. And also it's very self-driven in terms of like, it's pretty open. You can go lots of different places without specifically being like put on rails. You have to like open your map. You're reading quests. You're reading dialogue. It's a lot of stuff that doesn't stream well.
Yeah, at all. Yeah.
Like if a streamer boots up Crashlands 2 for the first time, it's probably not that good of viewing. It's not
also
good television.
Very good for playing, but not necessarily very good for
right.
viewing.
Yeah, like as a player, you're mentally engaged the whole time, like making little decisions and doing stuff, right? But externally, that's not what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so, but then also the decisions we made about marketability from like an art design and all that kind of standpoint, we're thinking about like, what does this look as a trailer? What does it look like as a collection of screenshots on Steam, right? And even things like this. Yeah, because the animation is fucking dope. It's so cool in that game, right? But also makes it impossible to take a good screenshot, right? Because of the smear frames, which look great when it's moving, but not when it's not, right? Similarly,
we even added a setting in the game to turn off blinking.
Yeah, so we could get good screenshots.
Yeah. Well, I think what's funny about that though is like screenshots also like frankly don't fucking matter that much. Like if you can't take whatever the game is and somehow boil it into short form content, right? That is interesting, that's manageable. That people
that was the other part too, like the complexity of something like Crashlands 2.
That's basically where it came.
Yeah, meant so that coming up with short form content, like because short form content is I got a little story to tell, right?
Yep.
And so you to be able to come up with a story and then capture, and it with something like Crashlands 2, it was basically like having to go out and do that in real life, in wildlife, because like everything's moving and doing stuff, and it's this huge complicated machine. It's really hard to set up a specific scenario, and like all this.
Well, and everything's an alien. Like
everything's an alien. It's not
and this was
rockable.
there's also a relatability issue, right? Which is when we started working on How Many Dudes. So just to be clear, I'm not shitting on Crashlands 2 because
no.
Crashlands 2 fucking owns, and I'm very proud of it, and it's a great game.
Yeah, we're talking about the marketability problem.
It does sell effectively. It sells very well on something like Steam. The problem is that we cannot fucking market the thing on something like YouTube Shorts. Does that make sense?
We can't. We can't utilize the dominant ways that people learn about games.
Correct.
Yeah, which we saw, which impacted the launch of Crashlands 2, because still one of the messages that we hear today, now 6 months later, 9 months later, whatever it is, over and over and over again is, oh, how come I didn't know this game existed?
Yeah, why didn't you guys market this? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like we did reach out to thousands of streamers and YouTubers and press and whatever, but again, like it just doesn't stream that well. And it doesn't
we didn't create shorts during its development. I mean, it's like again, so if where people see stuff about games is shorts, which by the way is where they see stuff about games, if they're like someone who likes the game a lot, then we weren't there, Yep. And so there's basically the point is that it's not, it's, how to put it, you're fighting an uphill battle if you're not trying to think about marketing integrated into like the whole product, right? From the jump, given how people currently consume media.
Well, so that's
kind of like the point.
So let's talk about shorts, because I think this is kind of like the meat of.
This is where we've been experimenting.
Yeah, because we made How Many Dudes in the GMTK Jam as a 4-day jam, and we specifically made the game as like a counter to what we had experienced with Crashlands 2. We're like, with Crashlands 2, I remember like our goal with Crashlands 2 is we're like, we're going to make a game that nobody can ignore, and then they did. But it was because we were using a different standard. We were just like, we're going to make a game that has like all the fidelity just cranked up to 11. Like it's going to just look beautiful. The story's
so big and
be
so
great.
Good that they can't.
It's going to have like all this crazy stuff going on, all these really cool creatures and great gameplay. Just everything just dialed up to 11, which we did deliver on, right? But because of the stuff that we had just talked about, trying to get that attention, like trying to build that momentum and build that attention on it through YouTube and through Twitch and whatever else, it just didn't really hit. And so when we started working on How Many Dudes, we spent the longest we've ever spent coming up with a game idea, because we kept like rolling around like, okay, let's make a game about this. I remember one point we were like, let's make a game about like mutants, about like like merging organisms together and mutating them, or whatever. Like we threw around all these ideas, but every single time we had something that sounded like we could make a fun game out of it, then we would ask the secondary question, which is like, but who gives a shit?
Yep.
like would people already care about this? And then at some point we were like, that internet debate about whether 100 guys could beat up a gorilla? Let's make that. Let's make a game.
It was about the instant understandability and familiarity. And part of this too is that we were looking at other games that are coming at the time. The one that sticks in my mind around the same time was Shark Dentist, which to me was the idea of like, you're looking at the game and the title is instantly compelling, because it starts to, you start asking questions like Shark Dentist, like, okay,
you don't care.
I'm already in there.
Is it an RTS? Is
you
it
don't care at all.
You're like,
details don't matter. Yeah, you're just like, what?
I'm in.
Just what is this?
Yep.
And then you go see it, and it's what you expect in the best way, right?
Yep.
But it's the idea that like I could see a slug on Steam, where the title makes me go, what is this?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm in. Yep.
And I think that's where a game like Crashlands doesn't the name itself doesn't give you a compelling hook. And then when you go look at it at the store, because it's a complicated, like huge thing, the description of it also doesn't give you something instantly familiar that you're
it's just challenging it's challenging to fully describe, right? The experience of playing, right? And it's, I think, basically where when we were ideating on How Many Dudes in the jam context, we had a kind of a formal structure and a list of stuff that we were like, questions that every idea we had, we started smacking them up against this list of stuff, right?
Yeah, it's like, what would it look like if somebody saw a video of it in YouTube?
Yeah, or how does
this as a Steam slug? What would it look like?
Does this pull on even like higher up than that, does this pull on nostalgia? Does this
Yeah.
in other words, does someone like vaguely familiar with this somehow? Does it pull on some kind of trending concepts? Is it relatable? Is it understandable? Does it seem like the sort of thing that we could that you could like a streamer or a YouTuber could make multiple pieces of content about? We're doing this in like a jam context, right? Which is like wildly over the top because you don't need to do that. But the point is like,
because like in a jam, we've known for years now that like we can make a good game in a game jam.
that's just not the problem.
That's not the problem. The problem is, what game are we making? Are we making the
Yes.
right game?
Yeah.
And so that was where we put all of our energy in that jam.
Yeah. And so then out of that, you know, we started dev on How Many Dudes once we finished up the 1.3 patch for Crashlands. But we'd already seen through the jam that the game had legs, right? So we had this like really early prototype. And I think this is a good path for people to think about if you're trying to make a game that where you're integrating the marketing approach into it, is basically start the development of it in a context in which people will play it, which is oftentimes these online game jams. There's like Brackies, there's the Game Maker Toolkit Jam. There's a bunch of them constantly throughout the year. And a lot of them, people play them in order to like rate each other's games and stuff like that. And so you get responses. And also there's people streaming them, people who participate in the jam who then are streaming games. So you could throw yours in the list and you could see how it streams, even in its like shitty 4-day context. Like, does it have some legs to it?
Yeah. And we knew we were in because when the jam was done, some people streamed the game. And there's one streamer in particular that stood out where first he was like, I'm only playing browser games. And we didn't have a browser version of it. And Sam convinced him. He was like, just trust me. Just download it and try it. And he was trying to play as many games as possible. So he was spending like, 5 minutes on each game at most, and then, moving on. And so he's like, all right, fine. I'll download this. And then like there's an installer, and he's just like griping the whole time. He's like, oh my God, like I have to do this installer. Now it's going to like have a shortcut on my desktop. Oh my God, And he boots it up.
Which is, to be fair, extremely annoying.
Yeah.
In the context of trying to play like 30 jam games. Like,
So he boots it up. Then the very first round is one dude versus 10 toddlers, right? Which is we like specifically rigged that first round so that it's immediately
know what the game is.
Yeah, it like puts something in your brain to be like, I'm intrigued. Like this is kind of insane, actually, right? And so, and also like it gave him something to react to, because as a streamer he could kind of act like he could like do performative moral outrage about how like, oh my God, I just commanded this dude to pummel 10 toddlers. and then he gets into round 2, and then he ended up, how long did he play it? He played it.
It was like 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, he played for like a half hour. And at the end, he's like, you know what? I'm keeping this on my computer. Because like as he was setting it up and installing it, he was like talking about how he couldn't wait to uninstall it and get it off of his machine because he was annoyed that he had to install it. And then he just kept it. Right.
Yep.
And so we were like, okay.
Yeah, there's some legs there, right? And
but
so
there also is a good lesson there too about the accessibility problem, right? Because what you're saying
we
here
weren't
is like,
thinking about it actually. We still weren't thinking about it well enough.
Yeah. Because had we been fully thinking about this all the way through, we would have been thinking, well, if the whole idea of this is to test this game in the market in a context in which like people are playing games, and because then you can see how well it stacks up against all these other competitors, right? So like there's a bunch of stuff
make a web build of it, you idiot.
Yeah, make a web build, and which we then did because we couldn't do it as part of the jam because once you submit, you can't resubmit. But we built at gx.games to see what would happen, and that thing's
it's had over 100,000 plays now.
Yeah, like tons of plays, and again, the relative bit matters there a lot, right? It was doing better than most of the things that were already there.
Yeah,
so we could get those signals, but you can only get those signals if you give people the opportunity. And so if you're thinking of like, it's the same idea as short form content, where it's not that people have short attention spans; it's that they have infinite available content.
Yeah.
So
you got to meet
what's
them
the
on the
content
level
that stands out? Yeah, and because there's so much content available, then if there's any friction at all, meaning like I'm not instantly hooked in the first 2 seconds of this video, right? That's friction. If there's any friction at all, there's no friction. I could just do a little tiny swipe and I can see the next thing, right? And for like a game jam context where you're trying to get your game in front of people,
having an installer is insane.
Yeah, having an installer really gets in the way. Having even just downloading like is really slow, right? And
Ours
if you think about that too, for
How Many Dudes was the only game that had an installer that ended up in like the top, I think it was like 30 or something.
Yeah, something like
of
that,
the popular games.
Which is
only
another
get-
good signal. We're like, okay, so this is like overcoming his friction a bit, right? But
Right. Yeah.
But
it pollutes
let's
things
not
'cause you
have
don't
that
know.
friction next time.
Whoops.
Yeah. But the same idea with like Next Fest, right? Because Next Fest is about demos. And demos, it's a little different because it's on Steam, so people are going to do installation, but it's easy. You just hit a button on Steam and it's installed,
Mhm.
right? But you got to wait. There's some friction there, right? So if your game is, if you got a 30-minute demo with a 10 gigabyte download, no one's going to do it.
Yeah.
High friction, right? If you got a demo that doesn't hook people in the first minute, it's just so easy to move on to the next thing, right?
So that's kind of the initial stages of How Many Dudes, where we were like trying to think about the marketability of it right out of the gate, and that was like the entire impetus for what the game is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
And as
so
you're saying,
now-
the design of the first part of the game is like, how does this hook
It
people
also is, yeah.
in Next
Just right
Fest?
away.
How does this hook people
Yeah.
when they stream it? How does it hook people?
Yeah.
In the context of
So-
which they're basically doing marketing.
Yeah. So then on to the YouTube Shorts. Like once we have that, then we can start testing it further through short form video content. So Sam,
Yeah.
if you want to talk about kind of
Yeah, what we've done so
what
far.
that's
Yeah.
like,
So,
yeah.
well, I guess the abridged version of the journey there is basically that we saw an interview from Jonas Tyroller, who is another indie dev on YouTube. He has great interviews with devs, and one of them was just talking about how like he's like, yeah, devs just don't use YouTube Shorts, and I think it's insane because I got like a bajillion views on my game, and I go look at it. He does have like a bajillion views on this game, and it's like a 2D. It's just like kind of fun, kind of funky and weird, and like all of his videos looked like I was like I could make a video like that. It was just kind of him being like, we had this problem in our game. Here's this funny shit that happened, and that's it. Literally, that's it. And I was like, come on, he's got 8 million views on some of these fucking things, right? And I was like, come on.
We're like, could it really be that easy?
Yeah.
Like, you just-
And then around the same time, I saw Megabonk starts popping off, right?
Mhm.
And I go to look it up and
Same thing.
realize that the guy has these shorts. Yeah, and the shorts are like a minute, you know. And they're much more like intense, kind of a little more polished, you know, than the other guys. But I was like, they're putting up numbers like 1 million views here, 3 million views here.
But
Even
people
like
will see Megabonk and they're like, oh my God, this dude he just made this kind of janky ass goofy game and it just took off at random. It's like, no, he made it. He
he
made
was
it take
working
off.
on that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of them. There's like maybe I think like 30 or so of his shorts during dev, but it's like starts at the beginning, right, with his kind of stuff and the quality of them. Like he's dialing it in, you know, over time, like what the videos need to be looked like,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So we looked at all these things. We're like, I mean, that is not as hard as making a whole fucking game. Okay, like that's just not.
making 30
But it was also
videos.
the idea
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
you get to do experiments, right?
That was the
Because
beautiful
any
thing,
one
yeah.
video, relatively low cost to make, do it yourself. It doesn't have to be the quality of a whole ass trailer, right?
Correct.
And if it flops, make another one.
Yeah, and so we put together the very first one we made, which I think is just actually about the toddler problem, how we start the game, which is all about then just punching toddlers in the face, right? It's like, I think it's like 30 or 40 seconds. And I don't know the actual numbers on it, but I think it's like around the time we launched it got like 40,000 views or something on our
Yeah, or
channel,
maybe
right?
20.
Yeah.
But it was,
right now it's at 87,000.
And that was just weird because I spent that one in particular, I spent like an hour and a half.
Yeah, like an
And
hour, yeah.
it generated wish lists in a noticeable spike.
Yes. We saw like
Yeah.
200 wishes.
Because we put up our Steam, like as soon as the jam was done, we made a Steam page for How Many Dudes because we're like, let's just create a net to start capturing wish lists as
instantly.
we start testing.
Yeah, which is right because I don't did we update the game or just update the marketing copy on the
Just the-
GX.games and
just the marketing
Dude,
stuff.
the
yeah, so on
initial store
GX.games
page-
and itch we linked we set up the links to Steam.
we did. We put links to Steam, and then we had the store page up pretty quick. And the store page, I mean, it's just based off the jam game. And actually, even
Oh,
like
yeah.
as we're recording this, the screenshots on the Steam store page are still.
I just swapped them out this morning.
We just swapped after like it's been like 2 months now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, just having the store page up, was
Yeah,
so
just so we can
important.
start catching something.
And we recorded like a 15-second trailer, which was just like I think that one's still up there, which is just
I
like
just took one down this morning because it no longer looks like what the game looks
yeah,
like. You know,
because it was
Yeah.
like it was just like again it's just like what's the essence of this game, and it was like a shot of the choice between fighting like two gorillas or 80 something toddlers, you know, and it's Sam's voice just mousing over, and it just goes like 87 toddlers, that's just free money, and he clicks fight, and then it's just like all of his dudes just brawling with toddlers. and then the title card comes up,
Mhm.
and like that, it's like an elevator pitch, right? It's just like, here's what this game is. Choose between what you're gonna fight, and then you have these dudes that just duke it out.
Yeah, it's easy. It's very easy to communicate the whole thing, right? But yeah, so I think that's like, we essentially said, okay, I guess we'll give these things a shot. We tried one of them, and it did better than anything that and I'm seriously saying this, anything that we have done ourselves that wasn't like super high labor, super high effort, years of culmination. Like we have our newsletter that has like tens of thousands of people in it. Yeah, that thing works effectively. That takes a very long time to build. There's a whole shitload of infrastructure there.
It took us 10 years to accumulate that number of people, right?
Yeah. Versus just being like, I spent a
video.
morning on a video, here it is. And seeing that then also go into the wish list was a big surprise, right? Where we actually saw then the result on the platform itself. And so I think
for some extra context there too, we've many times tried pumping ads into YouTube videos, like our trailers and stuff, to generate views on them and to try to get those to convert into wish lists or purchases, right? And those have occasionally led to measurable results, always way below the cost of doing it, right? But most of the time, not even measurable results. As in, like, we can't even tell. We'll spend like $1,000 on an ad campaign and not be able to see an outcome.
Not a single measurable wish list will come out of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
and then we can go just make a video in an hour and put it up and get a few hundred wish lists, right?
Yeah. And so I think what I want to talk about here, and like, I think what we'll save for next episode is then like how to actually think about those shorts and making them and where we've gotten to, whatever else. But the thing I want to hone in on and like round this one out with is just the fact that what this allows you to do as an indie dev is basically allows you to play by a very different ballgame than what we've been doing in the past, right? So previously it was like, we'll make the game for years in a cave, and then
we'll stay tight-lipped about it so we can like be very strategic about drip feeding.
Who gets to know? Yeah, who gets
exclusive information?
We're playing
for the
we're doing the AAA marketing playbook.
Yes.
Yeah, which doesn't work for indies.
Well, even though we think you're doing like an indie version, which is more like organic feeling because you're just like a random person like sending, press info and stuff, and you don't have like super polished shit. But at the same time, it's like it's the same approach,
and it's just less effective if you're an indie. So
yeah,
you're doing the indie version, which is the one that you can afford, which is just less effective.
And importantly, it also has the same problems that AAA games have, right? Which is that, as we've seen very recently, a lot of AAA bombs, right? Because they're so tight-lipped about everything that marketing is conceptually a very high-level thing that happens sort of like when the game is done, which again is insane because the problem is you need to make sure that the game fits for a huge audience, right? Especially in AAA context. But it's incredibly challenging in a AAA context to somehow make builds that you could get to people to somehow like not be tight-lipped about things.
Think about GTA 6. We don't know what that game is. Like they've released a trailer, right? And that's it. There's no like, hey guys, look at this thing. What do you think about this? There's no like gathering community feedback, asking people what to do. It's just like a black box, right?
So they got
just going to come out, and it's like, will it be good? Well, they don't know, and we don't know because nobody's talking to each other, right? There's no communication.
And so as an indie though, and then using this kind of this short form content, what this means is that you can essentially be market testing your stuff and basically market adjusting your stuff as development goes on, like early on from day freaking one, if you wanted to, right? And I've now found a couple more instances, and some of those are through that Join Us Tyler channel of people, other indie devs who've been doing this in this pathway now for like a year or two, right? They were kind of already on this, but long before we figured it out. And they do the same thing where it's like they'll start working on a game, make a prototype in like 4 or 5 days, make TikToks or YouTube shorts while they're making the prototype, right? Each day, like a daily devlog. Here's like the bullshit we did today. Does anybody care, right? You're putting this thing up. Does anybody care about this thing? And there's always questions there about like, is it like the structure of your content? Like, are you doing a good job with regards to like short form video, whatever? Are you making good stuff?
Yeah. Is it too early in the dev part of the game because like it's so far from your vision of it?
Right.
Well, but
exactly. That is a question, right?
But it does change things, right? Because it forces you to reconcile if and this is something we did run into kind of like as we started making these videos early in dev, where we're like, what do we have in this game right now
that we could,
that people give a shit about? And if the answer is nothing, you're in trouble.
Yeah, we should probably
you
do
gotta
that sooner
figure out-
rather than later, right?
Yeah, like focus. So it actually we reoriented our order of operations of like what we were going to be adding to the game to like, let's figure out the next thing that we think would be really hilarious and cool that we could actually get people hyped about. And that's where our development energy goes, not like our normal approach of try to figure out like,
Like
what
system,
the next
system,
game
system.
system is to integrate. Or it's
Yeah.
like, just make whatever's marketable.
Yeah,
That's the next
because
thing,
and importantly,
you know?
because at the end of the day, the reality is that like if you spend all your time just making the thing, but nobody wants it because you haven't
Nobody
confirmed
knows
they
about
want
it either.
and also nobody knows about it, then you shouldn't have even bothered making the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to do this as a job, if you're doing it as a hobby, whatever. I'm not talking about you. If you're doing this for
We're
like
not
art
talking
form,
about it
okay,
as
fine.
as just art. Like
No,
yeah,
yeah. Not talking about that. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
you need to pay some bills with this fucking thing, which means you need people to look at it and people to buy it, right? And that means that integrating that marketing day one lets you, frankly, have a much better time just in dev because you get more feedback from people where you know that people want the thing that you're fucking making, which, by the way, feels nice. It's great. It's
Well, and-
really good. You know,
and to kind of round that off, like the first video we made has 100-something thousand views, and we, like Sam said, we've been dialing things in and like figuring out like
Trying
what
shit.
is it that gets people hyped, what is it that gets traction, and so just this past week we made a short about the farting bean burrito vampire problem, where vampires have life steal. We made a bean burrito that if they have it, that when they get knocked out, they fart and do AoE damage. But because of just the way that it was coded on accident, that fart would deal damage to enemies. It would heal themselves because of lifesteal, and then they would just stand right back up again and resume fighting. So we had like vampires that were immortal because they kept farting themselves back to life. And so we're like, that's a short.
that's a short
that's
right
a video.
there. Let's go.
So
Yeah, before we fix it,
Yep.
make that into content.
So we made it into a short, and that short is now closing in on 1 million views. It's at like 940,000 or something.
And importantly, it's also driven around 1,000 wish lists for us so far, right?
Well, and it elevated every other video on our channel. Like it dropped like 10 or 20,000 extra views onto just every other short.
Yeah, and so like we're dialing this stuff in, but it's still because of the short form nature of it, you can still just like kind of do random shit, right? Like that vampire video is a different format than some of the other ones we've been doing.
And it doesn't mention the name of the game or that it's on Steam or anything.
Yes, and
Yeah,
so
because a 1 to 1,000 ratio of conversion is not good, but it's also nothing is good in these contexts, right? Like all the conversions are low, right? But it's a 1 to 1,000 conversion with nearly 1 million views, for a little better than that, but something like that, right? For something that doesn't even tell you what it is.
Yeah,
right.
And so I think so I think to me it's like we'll cap it here with I think just the point that thinking about then how it is that the game that you're making, like the prototype, the jam version, whatever else, how it is that already in the first couple of days, it's a thing that you could make a funny video about. You could make short form, it's not really funny, but like make an attention grabbing video about in a short form context, and how that idea can scale to basically have a lot of those short form content pieces in it is a very useful way to do your dev because it's a tool that you have that like AAAs don't have, right? It's like one of the very rare advantages that we have is proximity.
We can
to our
talk
audience.
about what we're doing. We have authenticity is like what indies
they got a chain of command, NDAs, boards, and committees, and they can't fucking do this.
You could just send it. Yeah, you could just fucking send it, and you should. And I just want to hammer that home that like if you're making a game right now, and if you haven't made a single YouTube short about it, I don't care where you are in the dev process. For the love of God, like take a fucking day, get CapCut, put a video together, and just see what happens. Because the reality is like
make a short because you can't think of anything in your game that people want to see.
Well, that was the other thing we were.
Then you need to think some shit.
That was the other kind of mantra we had too, right? What's if we can't make engaging content for the game that we know everything about and are making it have full control over, then how can we possibly expect
anybody
randos out in the world to make content on our behalf through streamers, press, whatever? If we can't do it, why would anybody else?
Yeah.
Nobody can do it.
Yeah.
So let's pick this up in the next episode. We'll get into like more of the meat and potatoes about those shorts. I think about like some benchmarks we use and stuff like that. And we'll leave it here on the high level why you should be fucking doing this thing, because it's important. Go do it.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have then for this week's episode. We would like to thank our producers Fat Bard and Samba DeCoster for putting the podcast together, and thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate to support the podcast, and links to the archives. We'd also like to thank our recurring supporters who are already donating over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. And if you'd like to support the podcast, head on over there, donate to recurring donation. You can also leave us a message, which is great. And also, you can head on over to Steam, the App Store, Google Play, pick up all of our games, and of course, go wishlist How Many Dudes on Steam. We'd appreciate it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.